Today we're comparing the Ozonics HR600 to the HR500. So right off the bat, you can see the look difference. The HR500 is built off of the HR300 platform. The HR600 is built off of nothing we've ever done before. It is completely new. Again, from their, redesigned fan right off the bat, the HR500 has the fan intake on the bottom. The HR600 has the fan intake on the top. It's actually a completely redesigned fan on the inside of the unit as well. So on the HR500, we're pulling the air in the bottom, pushing that air up over the coil, exhausting the ozone out the front. The HR600, we're pulling the air in here on the top, going through the fan and then back over that coil, exhausting the ozone out the front. One of the big things that I would say when you compare the 600 to the 500 and hunting with it is when you have the Ozonics above your head, you're not hearing the hum of that fan. I always say that I don't ever feel like an Ozonics, a deer hears it, but at times could it impede my ability to hear something? Absolutely. If it's a real calm morning, and there's just, you could hear a pin drop, you can hear that fan humming above your head when that air intake is right there. We always used to talk about turning your Ozonics half turn and running your Ozonics upside down. Well, now you don't have to do that. Again, there's no fan on the bottom. We're pulling that air in from the top. So my experience with the HR600, you're not gonna hear the hum of the fan. What you're gonna hear is the coil producing that ozone, which is really kind of a whole different experience comparatively to the HR500. So like we said, we've talked about redesigned fan, completely new layout of the units. The other big thing when it comes to the layout is the batteries. We've got a new HR600 XL battery comparatively to our HR500, HR300 XL battery, okay? So what we're talking about with that new battery is 30% more runtime compared to the HR500, which when you start to really look at the specs, it's kind of mind-blowing. We're talking about up to 13 hours on standard mode, up to 10 hours on boost, and up to 9 hours on hyper boost, which is just awesome. One of the things you always hear people talk about with the 500, the 300, the 230, and like we're talking about now, the 500 is man, I got to have two batteries, because even on an 8-hour battery, if you're doing all day sits like a lot of us do in the Midwest, in the peak of the rut, you're not getting an all day sit out of an 8-hour battery. If the situation was right and you were only trying to take one battery and you were running it on standard mode, you're getting up to 13 hours. Even 10 hours on boost is just crazy to think about comparatively to what we're all used to with the HR500. The other thing that one of the differences when we're talking about the power and the battery of the HR600 compared to the HR500 is how you charge the HR600. On the HR600, it's actually internal charging. So you get the same AC cord and power supply like you would use on the HR500, but you plug that power supply into the back of the HR600 and it charges the battery internally. Whereas the HR500 comes with our AC cord power supply and our charger cup. All right, going back to talking about ozone outputs. That's another thing where it's just a big step up, really all across the board. I know I'm just kind of rattling these off, but we're talking 20% more ozone. We're talking 25% quieter. We're talking 30% more runtime. So when you start to look at that 20% more ozone output, what that's built off of is a new replaceable coil with the HR600. So literally you just can pinch it with your fingers and it pops right out. So the nice thing about that is you can have extra coils. So say halfway through the season or you just get yourself in a real dusty situation where you really are worried about the integrity of that coil, you can have another one on hand. Literally replace it in the tree stand if you want to, and it just snaps right back down in there. It stays very, very well. Whereas on the HR500, if that coil starts to wear out, you're gonna have to look at doing a paid refurbishment, send it to us, and we'll replace the fan and the coil. That's a great option too. Part of the drawback though is then you don't have your HR600, you don't have your HR unit. You can't hunt with it if it's in, at our shop getting all fixed up. So to be able to have a replacement coil and do that yourself is just a huge advantage with that HR600. The other thing to talk about, the differences between the HR600 and the HR500s is the buttons and the light indicators. So like we've all been used to on the 300 platforms, the 500 had the buttons on the front and the light indicators on the front. Completely new on the HR600. Again, we really heard what people were telling us, like, man, when I have that Ozonics up there, and I experienced this too, when you have it exhausted and downwind side, you couldn't see your light indicators. You had to kind of reach around and rubbernecking around to find your buttons. Now the buttons are right on the bottom of the unit. So when you have this above your head, literally, they're just fingertips away. So you've got the power button, the mode button, but you also have a light button. That's the other big thing. The HR600 has 2 red LED lights where the HR500 doesn't. So every time you press the mode button, just like the 500, it's going to light up whatever mode you're going to, and it's also going to light up your battery indicator showing you how much runtime, or excuse me, what level of battery you're at, whether it's 25, 75, or 100. The HR600 also has been completely redesigned from an overmold perspective. You can see there's just a lot more overmold on the HR600 top comparatively to the HR500. Again, it's just super nice in the hand. It's really grippy. It's easy to hold on to. Like you said, one of the things that I always say about that overmold is when you're pulling it in and out of your backpack, it just makes it quieter to the touch. When stuff is rubbing up against in your backpack, you're just not going to hear it. Some of the similarities between the HR600 and the HR500 is when it comes to mounting system options. So the HR600 and 500 are both going to come with the SmartArm mounting system and the T-handled overmold tree screw. The other thing to mention is they're both app compatible and they're also both remote compatible. But one of the things with the HR600 is in the app, there's a light button so you can turn the lights on and off from the app. But with the app, like before on the 500, you're going to be able to power it on. You're going to be able to see your mode and switch modes. You're going to be able to see your runtime. You can name the unit what you'd like. So most of those app features are the same, except you can turn the lights on and off on your HR600. For me, and this was said to me a long time ago, and I thought this was so right on, the experience that we all really have with our Ozonics isn't when it's just running up above your head. You don't really experience then. When you experience it is when you're touching it, when you're setting it up, when you're tearing it down, when you're getting it out of your backpack, when you're charging your batteries. And I really believe that the user experience with the HR600 is really second to none. It's very well thought through. And I think it's just a big improvement and a big jump forward comparatively to the HR500. Thanks for watching our video today. If you have any questions, check out our website at ozonixhunting.com or feel free to give us a call at 979-285-2401. Thanks again, and good luck out there.